Henle editions need no introduction for classical musicians. Recognizable everywhere by their dark blue covers, these so-called Urtext editions are respected worldwide for the highest standards of scholarship and typesetting. Now, each Henle edition is the result of months and sometimes even years of research by respected musicologists. Moreover, the scores are among the most easily readable due to the beautiful typesetting, which requires considerable engraving by hand. Now, the primary goal for the digital editions was to preserve the accuracy and the legibility for which Henle editions are famous. To that end, Henle has duplicated the exact editions in digital form for both iOS and Android tablets. When I go into my library, then you can see the recent scores that I have. And you could filter by composer. So let me click the filter button here. And then you could see in my library, I have all these composers, Bach, Beethoven, Chopin, etc. So here I have the Beethoven sonatas, for example. Let's go to the Moonlight Sonata, famous piece. And you can already see several wonderful features here. This is highlighted in blue, which, by the way, you can disable. These are the score comments, but I can turn them on here and tap on this, and it gives me a little translation, like all the notes. Now, some of the scores, let me give you an example of a score that has lots and lots of comments, is the new edition of the Liszt Sonata, for example. And really on every single page there are a bunch of editorial comments. And here you can just tap on all of these and they'll show you the sources. You get a little pop-up window and it says F. It lacks the staccato dashes at the first octave. Then I can tap on F and it gives me the exact details. Now the app is also compatible with Bluetooth page turners. So if it's just here at the piano, I could just tap my Bluetooth page turner. You can see it turns the page then as soon as I tap. Now, one of the really nice features of this app is the fingering. So in the Mozart sonatas, for example, they give you 4 different sets of fingerings, which obviously they cannot do in the printed edition because you can only have one. In the digital version of the scores, then you can just turn off the fingerings altogether, select no fingerings. And many of the scores have a selection of fingerings. So here we have 4 different pianists' fingerings, including Bela Bartok and Camille Saint-Saëns, very famous composers. And you could just tap on them, and you could see all the fingerings change. And then there's another great thing that you could do here. You could either go to printed layout. So if you buy the printed edition of the score, that's exactly what you get. Or you go to custom layout. And here, let's say I want the movements on a new page. I can tap on stave spacing and then adjust the margin so you can see how it'll get bigger or smaller, and I can adjust the spacing. Here's a little tip that I like to do. Right. And you can see all the comments on this, by the way, which this is incredibly helpful. Let me turn those off. And now I'll go to custom layout, stave spacing, and then I can adjust the margins. And what I like to do is put this all the way to the left, and I start with the spacing all the way to the left. And then this shows you down at the bottom here, all these dots. These dots show you the number of pages. So if I adjust the spacing until that increases, and then I go back, whoops, I go back, and that, what I just did now is I set this for my size screen. I have a smaller 9.7-inch iPad, and for my size screen, that means I have the maximum size of the systems, right? So the margins are as thin as possible, and I have the fewest page turns. So that's the way that I prefer the scores. Now, if you tap here, you go to the Henle store, and here you could see they're always adding new music. And not just piano music by any means. So viola music, Chopin, the complete works for piano solo, Scriabin, the 10 piano sonatas. You can browse the store by composer, instrumentation, by period. These are all the new things that they've added. And this works on a credit system. And let me show you this. So here it is. You can go to purchase credits, and the more credits you buy, the cheaper they become. Now, in conclusion, the Henle Library has quickly become my favorite app on the iPad, and not just my favorite music app, but my favorite app overall. And I really find it far superior to downloading scanned public domain scores in PDF format, given the quality of Henle's scores and how well they made their app work on smaller screens. I still definitely have quite a library of PDF scores from imslp.org. That's also a very good resource. But in terms of contemporary, up-to-date, really, really well-edited editions, then Henle is pretty hard to beat. I mean, they have an editorial process of at least 6 different stages for all of the scores that they publish. So they're very, very thorough, and they're constantly revising their scores. So for professional classical musicians and music students, I think that the app is indispensable and really worthy of the highest recommendation.